Hello, we are in 2nd Nephi chapter 23, which is Isaiah chapter 13, and we are in a shift in Isaiah. So we kind of have gone through the history of the world the last few chapters, and now we're going to kind of go back in time. We read before the Lord has done excellent things, and he's done a lot of things, and we're going to see now what it is that he has done. So as we know, the last chapter ends with us meeting the Lord. We're crying, we're singing, and the Holy One of Israel is in the midst of these. So we know this is a time well in the future, the millennial reign, if you would. And so now we're going to go back, and we're going to see how things get wrapped up. So in the Book of Mormon, these chapter 13 of Isaiah and chapter 14 are included, and these are part of that next section, which sort of describe the end of the world, essentially, and what's going to happen and how it's going to look and who it's going to affect in a very powerful way. And I'm still getting over the virus, so if I seem a little short of breath. So verse 1 begins with the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. So this again is right away controversial out the gate, because it said Isaiah the son of Amos did see. And they didn't say, no, not just any Isaiah, but the son of Amos. They specify. He specifies, I saw this. So because this concerns the future that hadn't happened during Isaiah's lifetime, there are many scholars that are going to say, well, obviously he didn't write this because no one can know the future, right? So it can't have been him. So it's just always interesting to me that people that don't believe in revelation and information from God to a prophet are the ones analyzing this text and interpreting it for many people. So, so this very controversial phrase says, yeah, I know there are going to be people like you out there, you scholarly types. However, I'm letting you know right now, I did see this, and this is what's going to happen. And not only does he see things that are beyond his lifetime by 100 years or so, he sees things that are beyond his lifetime hundreds of years, thousands of years later. So, so the burden of Babylon. So Babylon wasn't much of anything at the time when Isaiah had this vision. Assyria was the big one to contend with. So him saying Babylon, people at his time, yeah, it's called The Animals Have to Be By Me, okay? I offer and I offer. Do you want to go out there? No, they would rather be in here. So Babylon wasn't much of anything. So the fact that he's referring to Babylon should have been to the people at his time somewhat of a joke. You know, it's sort of like saying the burden of Cuba, which, you know, Joe Schmo saw. You know, they're like, the burden of Cuba? What? You know, this little rinky-dink something that just seems of no consequence where it went during his lifetime, but then later on it does prove to be a kingdom to reckon with that no one could have predicted. And I'm not saying it's going to be Cuba, but I'm saying, for example, that's how it would have sounded to contemporary ears. It would have sounded ridiculous to them. So this Babylon has come to represent, and for many people, the world, worldviews, world kingdoms. And for the metaphor of the Book of Mormon, this is the great and spacious building. Babylon represents all the philosophies and the vain ambitions and imaginations of men. It's their kingdom. It's the mortal's idea of what glory is, of what great things are, of what power is. Babylon represents all those worldly values that people attach to greatness rather than God. And as glorious as it may be, as maybe modern, as advanced, as if it's without God, it is the great and spacious building. It is, another word for it is Babylon. Verse 2, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. So again, the shake the hand is, even the footnote here says it's more likely wave the hand. And we have here in verse 2, it says banner as opposed to ensign. So this is the actual banner, you know, that whatever it is your values are. Today it's a lot of t-shirts. Today it is banners. We see a lot of protest people holding up their banners. People like to state what they stand for, and it gives them a sense of identity, that those banners, you know, this is the cause I'm fighting for. This is what that shows that I'm, you know, on this side and that side. And so the banner is usually something that people take into battle. And the nobles, who are these nobles? The nobles, our word probably today would be the elite, the upper crust. These people are going to go into their gates. There's going to be an upheaval. I have commanded, verse 3, I've commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones. For mine anger is not upon them that rejoice in my highness. So this is the Lord speaking. And he's speaking specifically about the ones that he is in a relationship with. My sanctified ones, my mighty ones. So if they're mighty in the eyes of the Lord, chances are really good they're not mighty in the eyes of the world. So, and they're doing things that are not, they're not worldly pursuits, and they're not they're not out there getting the Nobel Peace Prize or they're not, getting something that the world would define as glorious. These are people defined strictly by what the Lord decides are his purposes and what he needs done. And so he has commanded them, and he has called them, and he's telling them, and this is what's really important, that his anger is not on them who rejoice in his greatness. So his highness, his greatness. And the reason why that I believe that this word highness is used, because we're going to see later on that judgment is going to come upon all those who are high and mighty in their own eyes. So those who are able to differentiate between the highness and wonder and the glory of God and that of the world, as the world defines it, those are the ones that he's talking about now. His anger, this wrath that's about to be described. Remember, we're going back in time prior to the millennial reign. This is before the earth is going to be prepared for the millennial reign, and this is how it's going to go down. He's saying that those who rejoice in my highness, my anger is not going to be on them. Verse 4, the noise of the multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together, the Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. Now this is interesting because it's written as a metaphor. So there's going to be this great tumultuous noise as though it were of a great people. But since it's meaning it sounds like a great army, this big amassed something. It sounds like this, but since it's a metaphor, it isn't this. It just sounds like this. But we know it's going to be the hosts that the Lord gathers. Now, since these are hosts that the Lord gathers, they may sound like an army of 1,000,000, but who knows what the number will be. They will sound great. They will probably appear terrifying to those who are going to be recipients of that anger that he mentioned in the previous verse. But it isn't going to be that. It isn't, because it says it's going to be as a great people, but it's not going to be a great people. Verse 5, they come from a far country. So now he's describing these hosts. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Okay, so that's, that's not a country on earth anyway. Far indeed it is, but it's not a country of earth. It differentiates greatly. So before in Isaiah we read about how the Assyrians were the tool in his hand. They were the axe in his hand. And the Lord used their indignation to exercise wrath upon the people that failed him. But here, no, this is not what's going to happen. The Lord is gathering his own army from heaven. Yea, the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So the Lord is not going to be using an instrument anymore. This is going to be his indignation. This is going to be his army. It's going to sound like a great army of people, but this is going to be a great army in other ways from heaven. And there's not going to be anywhere in the earth that is going to be spared, because it says to destroy the whole land. And you sort of pause here and you say, well, if the whole land is going to be destroyed, how is it that his anger is not going to be upon us then? Even those that believe, even those who are in relationship, because the land is the land is the land. If the whole land is going to be affected, how are those who are in a relationship with God not going to, in some way, be affected? But if the Lord can muster an army from heaven, and the Lord can do anything. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Yea, the Lord and the weapons of his indignation destroy the whole land. Howl ye, verse 6, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. So again, this is differentiating from the earlier chapters where we see how the Assyrian was the tool in his hand. No, this is going to be a destruction this is going to be specific. It's going to be not only specifically from the Almighty, it's going to be aimed specifically at certain people. So that we don't have to doubt the Lord's aim here. And we don't have to doubt that upon whom the judgment will be exercised will be accurate, 100%. Verse 8, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. So interesting, verse 8. They shall be afraid. Okay, so they already are afraid. There's many people in the world who are already afraid. Anxiety is off the charts. People have more trouble sleeping and more trouble with just being anxious and being comfortable, not only in the world, in their own skin. I mean, there is just that whole general malaise, that discomforting, disquiet, discombobulation, that's already begun. That's already here. And and sorrow shall take hold of them. It's going to be, that is going to sweep over the earth. And that's already here as well. That sorrow is rampant. The earth is such where people can hardly have a reason to rejoice. There's so many people who, especially young people, who are like, do I even want to have kids? Do I really want to bring kids into this world? I mean, as terrible as that sounds, to older people, it's definitely really describing what the scriptures describe, which is that fear and sorrow are going to make the world an inhospitable place. And that's already here. That's already here for many people. It says they are going to be amazed. People are going to be amazed because people of the world rely so much on the kingdoms of the world. They rely on governments. They rely on human beings and mortals to fight causes for them and to look out for them. And sadly, as we see in many current events, there is no one looking out for you. No one at all. As we see most recently with the fires in Maui, there is no one. There is no one for these people to turn to. People talk an awful lot, and they do a ton of moral posturing and virtue signaling, like they're really good and they're on your side. But at the end of the day, when disaster strikes, just like in Maui, it's your average Joe Schmo that comes up with the meals and the water and the aid. And the one that has the least is usually the one that's running to help the most. And all those other people that are part of the great and spacious building are those who people have put their trust in, because they talk so much and they write books about, live your best life and how to do this and how to do that. And at the end of the day, these people, they're in it for themselves. And that's it. They're in it for themselves. And that's generally how you can tell, who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Are they in it just for themselves? Are they just about selling, books? Are they just about making a name for themselves? Or they actually have actions behind what it is that they're claiming to do? Are there results? Are there people saved? Are their lives changed? If the answer is yes, then chances are really good that this person is actually putting their money where their mouth is. And that's someone that you can rely on in many ways to get something done if there are actions behind the words. But too often, especially in the world of politics, people talk a good talk. But when push comes to shove, there is nothing to show for all those words. And that's why people are going to be amazed. They're going to be amazed. They're going to be so amazed that they had put their trust in people that had no right to be trusted. None whatsoever. And people are going to be amazed because what they thought was going to last forever is going to crumble right before their eyes. Revelations talk about some empires going to be gone in an hour. It's going to be amazing. Truly, it will be amazing, and people will be amazing, and they will learn, and they will find out just how limited and finite a being man is, no matter what position they're in, and no matter how much money they have. And I love this beautiful image. Their face, well, for me, since I like words, their faces shall be as flames. And what do flames do? They dance. They're like expressive. So people are going to be like, here. They're going to be shocked. Their faces are going to be dancing with amazement. And they're not going to, everywhere they turn, there's going to be something else to be astounded at what is happening. There's a dam bursting over here, killing tens of thousands. There's a fire over here, destroying in a way that fires have never destroyed before. There's going, on and on. There's going to be virus. There's going to be so many people. Faces are going to be like dancing like flames. Like what? Verse 9, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. And he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. So again, this is going to be a supernatural event because it's going to be aimed at sinners. And we're going to read on who specifically he's talking about. And it's, again, the day of the Lord. Remember, Isaiah said a ton of times, in that day, that's the day of the Lord. And so when the Lord came the first time when he was born, he came, he was he's peace. He's offering you this beautiful message that if the world had managed to live by this incredible message of peace and love and turn the other cheek, and the Lord stood by the adulterous woman. Don't be throwing rocks at this person. You're not perfect yourself. And yet the sad part is that it's religious people that are usually the first ones to throw the rocks. The Christians are usually the first ones to throw the rocks. Well, this person is a sinner, so whatever good he might have done or she might have done, it's worthless because they're a sinner. Well, we're all sinners. We're all sinners. But Christians have a habit of trying to destroy people with their stones. And this is the thing that is so... This is why he's going to come cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, because he gave you the memo. He gave you the message. He hung on that cross in love, asking for forgiveness for the very people that were committing these atrocious acts of hatred toward him. He gave you the example. He gave you the scriptures. He gave you all these things, and yet you were still hateful. You were still hateful with wrath and ready to condemn. And so now the Lord was patient and loving and kind. Well, the second time it's going to be, well, you got the message, all right. You said you understood. You said, you got it, and you were all about peace, and you're over there virtue signaling, and you're over there, acting like you're just this great person of equality and morality and equity. And yet you were all about lining your own pockets and doing what was best for you and yours immediately, and not at all about helping other people. So the land is going to be desolate. And this can mean many things. It means, for one, it's not going to be fruitful. It's not going to be yielding the way it has in times past. So there's probably going to be famine. It also means that there's probably going to be hardly anybody left. Verse 10, for the stars of the heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. So it's going to be very dark. Very dark. And Christians are like, the stars have no meaning. Don't, this whole thing about looking to the, heavens for, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And yet the scriptures constantly mention that there will be signs in heaven. When the Savior was born, there was a big sign in the heaven. And yet we constantly hear from Christians, that's so evil to look at the stars and to consult the stars. And not that we do this over and above the Lord and our relationship with the Lord. However, the Lord can communicate to us all sorts of things in all sorts of ways. It is his creation. And so, I don't know, I just feel like there's so many things that the Christian world does to try to limit our access to information. Don't look there. Don't look there. Don't look here. It's of the devil. It's of the devil. And it's like, then why does it talk about the stars here? And why was there a sign given in the sky when Christ was born? So I'm saying I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Christians are really good at trying to say, this is a sin, this is a sin, this is a sin. And they're just good at here's a sin, here's a sin, there's a sin, And yet they don't like to see things as signs. Verse 11, and I will punish the world for evil. So again, he will punish them himself. Again, he's not relying on some Assyrian wrath. He's going to do it himself. And then he's going to go on in this verse to list who he's coming for. And the amazing thing about the list that we're about to read is anyone is capable of committing these sins, both the believer and the non-believer. These are not specific to those who don't believe. And if you listen to most pastors who are going over these verses in Isaiah, they're going to be very specific. This is all about, if you don't believe Christ by this time, you're a goner. I have news for you. You can believe in Christ and still be an awful person. You can believe in Christ and still be a pompous, arrogant, selfish, self-centered, righteous, holier than thou person who does nothing but inflict judgment and condemnation on those around him. Yeah. So pride and arrogance are the weaknesses of anyone who thinks they're better than other people. You can be a wealthy person who just thinks they're entitled. You can be a poor person who's angry about things and thinks you're entitled to certain things. You can be a religious person and think you're better than all the sinners around you. And you can be a non-religious person who condemns all the religious people around. These sins that are described in this chapter are about anyone. There's not one single group that has like immune from these sins. And so this is going to be a shocking day, especially for religious people who very often tend to be far more judgmental and condemning of other people, and quick to say, oh, don't associate with non-believers. Don't go near those ones. Those are the bad ones. It's like, hello, what do you think Christ did? Christ specifically went to the people who were not the religious, people of his time, and he reached out to those who had been excluded from that community for one reason or another, and he reached out to them specifically. And yet you have much of Christianity today saying, stay away. Stay away from those, directly conflicting and contradicting what Christ taught. And they're saying they're Christian. Just saying. So I will punish the world for evil and the wicked. So we have evil and wicked for their iniquity. So we got three things: evil, wicked, iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay down the haughtiness of the terrible. So it's just so interesting to me, because religious people will say, oh, we're going to talk about, sexual sin, or we're going to talk about this, that, and the other. And the first thing out the gate that Isaiah, that the Lord is saying, and I will punish, so this is the Lord speaking, arrogancy and haughtiness. Arrogancy and haughtiness. And I have to say that twice, because I guarantee you most people, particularly pastors, this doesn't mean anything to them. They want to talk about the concrete, hardcore sins that they love to harp on, morality and thievery and this, that, and the other. Arrogancy and haughtiness. This is what the Lord's coming after. Of course, if you're arrogant and you're haughty, you think you're entitled to a lot of things. And so you tend to dip your hand into a lot of cookie jars that you think, well, I'm entitled to this, and I'm entitled to that, and I'm entitled to that. But that's not the only form of arrogancy and haughtiness. There is a ton of arrogancy and haughtiness in the Christian world, in the religious world, where people think, oh man, I'm so good. I can't be, seen with those people. Those people will defile me. I'm so good, I got to cross the street to the other side so I don't, defile myself with the filth over there. You're not calling that arrogant and haughty? Verse 12, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. I imagine there's only one golden wedge of Ophir. Gold is already precious, but apparently there's only one golden wedge. I don't know. But if you've ever seen The Walking Dead, you know that at some point in that history of that alternate universe, human beings became quite the rare commodity. Live, cognizant, feeling human beings became a rare commodity. Rare, more rare than the golden wedge of Ophir. And that's this is what it's going to be. Either people are going to be wiped out and they're going to be dead. There's going to be so many people who are dead due to whatever, war, pestilence, famine. Or there's going to be so many people who are dead in other ways. They'll still be walking around like the Walking Dead, but they're not going to be people of heart and mind and soul in relationship with God. And that person is going to be precious, 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 precious. Verse 13, therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts and in the day of his fierce anger. So there's, again, heavens are referred to. The heavens, so you can think, oh, is this the sky? Or is this referring to everyone on the other side? The heavens, they're going to shake. All our dead are going to be up there going, oh, what is it exactly that's going to happen? The heavens are going to shake. This is going to affect more than just planet Earth. This is going to affect beyond planet Earth, that even so much so that the heavens are going to shake. And if the earth is going to be removed out of her place, meaning, is this her orbit? Is the earth going to be knocked out of her orbit? And then definitely the moon will be affected. The other planets will be affected. I'm sure a lot of things will be affected. And we know that if the earth is knocked out of her place, no longer on our orbit, we're either going to freeze to death or we're going to burn up. We're either going to move farther away from the sun or we're going to move closer to the sun. Either way, we're going to be leaving our Goldilocks perfect position. And if that's the case, and more than likely it's going to be on the heat side. According to the scriptures, everything's burn, melt, fire, flame, stubble. We have all these type of words that indicate this is going to be a heat situation. And so if the earth is removed out of her place, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for life in general. Verse 14, and it shall be as the chaste roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up, and they shall every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land. Everybody's going to be abandoned. Everyone is going to feel abandoned. Everyone is going to try to gain a sense of home. They're going to try to turn back, but it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. A chaste roe, a sheep, animals with nowhere to go, that have no herd, they have no shepherd. These are animals that are scattered and that have no resources and no sense of safety and no sense of home at all. And so this is going to be an upheaval. It says everyone's going to flee to their own land. People are going to be shifting around. They're going to try to look for safety, but there will be none. There will be no place to escape to. There will be nowhere to go. In some of these apocalyptic shows, as we see, again, particularly The Walking Dead, you see people wandering around, like looking for some place to go. And then when they get there, it turns out to be a big nothing burger. It's like nowhere. You get that sense, when you're seeing some of these shows that, this sounds like Isaiah, that people are just going to be wandering around with no identity, no one to guide them, and no place to call home. Verse 15, everyone that is proud, again, we've got this specificity of who the Lord is talking about. We have arrogance, we have haughtiness, and now we have pride. Everyone that is proud shall be thrust through. Well, that's not it's not funny, and I don't mean to laugh, but sometimes Isaiah can be really poetic. And he can give you images, like people's faces are going to be flames. And then sometimes he's like, yeah, the proud, they're going to be skewered, and sometimes he's just super direct and you're like, okay, well, there's no mincing words through. They're going to be dead. They're going to be thrust through. Now you can just say, they're going to be skewered. They're going to be killed. Whatever it is, they're going to be put out. Yea. And everyone that is joined to the wicked shall fall by the sword. Dead again. These are all people going to be dead. They're going to fall one way or another. They'll be either dead by the sword, or they're going to be, thrust through is definitely a sword image, but that could be anything that could kill a person, anything that brings a person down. And again, we have the proud and the wicked, those who are even joined to the wicked. And again, that's where you have to examine your alliances. Who are you relying on? Who are you siding with? Are you siding, because if you are on the side of the haughty and the arrogant and the proud, you're not on the right side. You're not on the right side. And the haughty and the arrogant and the proud are going to say, hey, we're right, and everybody else is wrong. And we're going to stay away from everybody else because we don't want to become dirty or sullied. And they're going to be all about themselves, and they're not going to be about helping others, even those who are different from them. And that's how you can tell the arrogant and the haughty and the proud. They're very much about just themselves and just their little community of beliefs. And they're not about helping anybody else. And they'll just cut people off left and right if they feel that it's advantageous to preserve their image, or it's advantageous to prevent them looking bad. They have no respect for individuals and individual opinions. They just move like a corporation or like a machine, where they're just all about self-preservation, and they don't care about those who are not in their group. So they're not Christ-like, in other words. And this is what's going to happen to them. And it's horrific. These verses are horrific that are coming up. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Everything that they thought was theirs is going to be destroyed in front of their very eyes. Behold, I will stir up the Medes. So the Lord is still using, people. The Medes, again, this was another nobody at the time when Isaiah was writing. Because after Assyria is Babylon, and then after that are the Persians and the Medes. So they're like third down the line. I'm sure people are like, the Medes, that's like saying, okay, now Taiwan is going to say, what? The contemporary person in Isaiah's time would be like, the Medes. What are you talking about? So this is, again, something that just seems impossible. And yet that's how it happened. Assyria, that's how, and then after that, the Greeks. So, it went online just like he said it would. And so that's why scholars are like, oh, so he couldn't have written this because there was no way for him to know this. Yeah. Speaking of proud and arrogant, there's no way he can know more than I know. So we know that this had to have been written by people later on. The proud and the arrogant is just unbelievable. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver and gold, nor shall they delight in it. Isn't that interesting? And does that not ring a bell? The people that have terrorized our nation, many others, they're not interested in gold and silver. They are interested in things in the next life. And so for you to say, hey, I'll give you gold if you don't blow this up or blow that up. And they're like, you can't guarantee me eternal happiness or eternal whatever in the next life. And so they're not interested in that. And they're also not interested in that because what they want is either revenge, or they want justice, or they want to fight against what they consider to be a wicked empire. They want to bring the devil down. And many of the terrorists today consider the United States and much of the Western world as Satan himself. And if you are a religious person, and if you believe in the Bible and you believe the Christian teachings, how could you say we're not? How could you possibly say, oh no, we're righteous people. Oh no, just look at the movies we make and look at our politicians and look at all that. Oh no, we're good. How could you possibly have the nerve to tell these people, no, we're really good. We take care of the earth. We take care of animals. There are no homeless people here. We look after the poor. Please. And I'm not saying it's because the Medes, for example, are righteous, but this is in their mind, that the particular weaknesses and failings of some nations portray evil to them and represent the kingdom of Satan to them, particularly in issues of morality, it seems. So yeah, they're not into silver and gold. That's not what they're after. Their bows shall also dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children, as we have well seen, as the world has been shocked. And it's not like our own country, speaking from the United States, has been immune. It's not like we have been really shown much pity toward children and women who are pregnant if they're in a war zone. You know, it's not like we, the nation that considers itself righteous has been any better. 19, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. Again, this is just funny because I'm sure people, Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. I'm sure people reading this at Isaiah's are telling, where is he getting this from? The beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So this is going to be, fire raining down from heaven. However it is, it's going to be supernatural means. So it's going to turn into nothing. And it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. So it'll be desolate forever. Verse 21, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. So the wild beasts, not really specified what wild beasts are there of the desert. You don't picture a ton of life there, so you're wondering, it's going to be overrun by, it seems like, creatures we don't even know about, because he just threw out wild beasts. And doleful creatures. Doleful means either full of sorrow or causing sorrow. So these doleful creatures, either they're sad themselves or they're going to be causing a lot of sadness for anybody probably that goes in that area. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. Now, a lot of, in Greek mythology, these are sort of drunken woodland gods, and they're usually represented as a man with horse's ears and tail, or goats. So this is half man, half goat. So we know from a lot of our stories from lore that this half man goat is usually an evil being. Usually the guy with the horns and the tail and the hooves. Usually a goat type person represents someone that is evil. Now, some people will say, well, this isn't actually the right translation, and it shouldn't have been satyr, it should have been something else. However, it doesn't really matter. We know that it's going to be abandoned, that it's not going to be a happy place to be, and that it'll be a place where only people or creatures that are either unhappy or not very friendly will be dwelling. Verse 22, and the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her day shall not be prolonged. For I will destroy her speedily. Yea, for I will be merciful unto my people, but the wicked shall perish. So again, here in verse 22, we have dragons, but some people say, no, it's jackals. but to me, I prefer satyrs and dragons because it gives you more an image of awful creatures. Awful creatures that have connotations generally of evil, or of monsters, or it's just going to be a very unpleasant place to be. And if you think of something like ostriches and wild dogs or something, it's just not the same. It's not as powerful an image to me personally as satyrs and dragons, which show they delight in these kind of things. Dragons in their pleasant palaces. Oh, a dragon likes this kind of place. It's death and it's destruction. And so it's a pleasant palace to a dragon, which is, the serpent is often synonymous with the serpent himself, who would like this desolation and this destruction and this crying and this dolefulness. And this is going to be speedily. And this is, and I will destroy speedily, for I will be merciful. So that I like that, because it's going to be, hopefully it's like a Band-Aid. You rip it off. It's going to go quick for those who are his people. But it will be terrible for those who have nowhere to go and no one to turn to. And that's what's so... it's just, the world does nothing but tell you, you're ridiculous for looking to a higher power. You're ridiculous. But in that day, I just can't even imagine to be, just that image of the sheep, just running around without a shepherd, and having nowhere to go and having no one to look for them, or no place to be gathered. And that's the feeling that is going to be pervasive upon the earth, because the world, the great and spacious building, the Babylon, whatever term you want to use, has told you over and over again, don't look to a higher power. Don't believe that superstition. But what a horrible day when there's that it will leave them with absolutely nothing, when all the kingdoms are dissolved and all the land is afflicted and no one escapes this wrath and there's nowhere to turn. How awful this image is in this chapter of what it means to be without God and what it means to be not in a relationship with God. But again, we are assured over and over again in Isaiah that the Lord is going to be merciful to his people. And so we don't need to fear. And as terrible as a description as this is about the wrath that is coming, those who are in a relationship with God truly don't need to fear. And that if he's your shepherd now, he will be your shepherd then. You are not going to be one of those sheep wandering around with nowhere to go. You will be like that image that Isaiah gave of the cow and the two sheep for the abundance of milk. There will still be an abundance. That relationship is abundance. Enjoying the presence of God is abundance. And to enjoy that presence as children of God, we need to recognize that other people are children of God as well. And to do our best to enlighten people, not necessarily through preaching, but to enlighten them of their value and of their divine heritage. And that's really important, because who believes it these days? Really, even Christian people, who believes it? Many people who are religious only believe that God loves them because they're doing what they should, and they're upholding their part of the bargain, but they don't really believe that God loves anybody else, because they're not. And so they're very condemning and they're very judgmental, and they don't really believe that God loves all his children, when in fact he does. He loves them all, and he would love for all of them to turn to him. But where is there to go these days? World leaders, those who are in political positions, by and large, tell you there's no such thing as the great fairy in the sky, so don't even bother wasting your time. And then there are religious people who say, no, we don't want you. And so for many people, they already feel like that chased roe and that sheep without a shepherd. There's already many people like that. And yet Christians are doubling down and saying, yeah, we don't want you either. And so it is a sad state of affairs. And this sad description has already begun. What Isaiah saw, the son of Amos saw, has already begun. So as a child of God, when we think that and we hold on to that idea, just remember that believers and non-believers alike we're all children of God. Remember that. And that believers and non-believers alike can be all guilty of the sins that Isaiah describes here. Just because you have faith in God doesn't mean that you are not capable of being arrogant, haughty, and prideful. You can be just as guilty as the non-believer. And that's who the Lord's coming after. And that is where his wrath will be aimed. So as followers of Christ, it behooves us to not be those things and to do our best to have faith in ourselves and also in those around us. Regardless of what their life or their lifestyle or what their beliefs may be now, they are children of God, and somewhere in there it resides that memory still of their premortal existence, that spark of divinity, and speak to that and love to that and hold to that, because that is there. Don't doubt that. Don't ever doubt that in yourself or in anyone. And I just hope that you are worshiping in a church that teaches things like that, that everyone is God's child and everyone is deserving of mercy and love and this incredible information that God wants to be in a relationship with you, not because you're perfect, but because you're his child. Because you're his child. Not because he wants anything from you except for your devotion. That's it. However weak and however full of shortcomings you are, that's what he's there for. That's what he's there for, to help you. And so I will talk to you again soon. And we just have one more chapter, and then we're going to go back to the regular text. And I believe we have a couple more chapters of Isaiah later on down the road, or maybe just one. And I'll talk to you again soon.